Good evening, Broncos fans, and welcome to the Orange and Blue View podcast with myself, Thomas Hall, and Ron White as your co-host. And tonight, it feels like we have been over with free agency for a while. It seems like it went so fast that I don't know. What are your feelings, man? We were talking about this earlier. It seems like free agency for the Broncos just was over in the first day. It felt like.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like as though it came and it went, and that first, I guess those 48 hours, it was kind of like a madhouse where, we were signing just about everyone. It seems we were getting news, we were getting alerts on, the offensive line just being reshaped,
Yeah.
in a matter of a few days, and it's an exciting feeling for Broncos country for sure, Thomas. That now the biggest need on the Broncos team, at least from first glance, has been addressed. Of course, we'll see how it shakes out, right? Once they start to play games on the field, but it's very encouraging what they've done in free agency so far.
Absolutely. And realistically, it's not even over. I mean, it feels like it's
Yeah.
over, but the official day was Wednesday, right? And so we got to see everybody getting signed before Wednesday even happened, really. I mean, unofficially. But we kind of knew the makeup a few days. So we both have had our chance to kind of let this sink in, kind of understand, the makeup of the team now going forward, what we liked and what we didn't like. And that's what we're really going to talk about tonight is what are some of the favorites, what are kind of our grades for each of these players that we saw the Broncos sign, and then kind of talk about what's next. What do they have left to address, because they pretty much used up most of their cap space. So in order to do anything else, it's going to have to be small signings, or there's going to have to be a restructure or something. And so we're going to jump into that tonight. So we want to welcome everybody in. We got everybody online now. We're on Twitch, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube. So thank you for joining. We're going to grab a few of these comments to say hello to some of the folks that are jumping in here. We've got Mike S coming in saying, "What's up, Thomas, Ron, Scott, Dylan, and Broncos country." Thank you, Mike, for being here. Appreciate
Mike.
it. We always appreciate you being here. And we've got David Youngkin coming in saying, "Broncos country evening. We need a center edge, running back, D line, and speedy receiver." So David is already jumping in with the comment about what we're gonna hopefully see the Broncos do next. So Ron, let's just take a quick stab at that. What do you think are the biggest needs going forward now after we've seen this flurry of free agent signings?
Yes, and thank you, David, for that comment. Jumping right in, we greatly appreciate it. To David's point, I would say the biggest would be center. I think center is still a big need. Now, I know there have been high hopes for Cushionberry to maybe take a leap forward with new coaching, a new scheme. He might be better, but we can't rely on that, Thomas. So I would say the biggest need for me would be center. And David, you're right on edge as well. We definitely need to address the edge depth. Outside of Gregory, Rare, and Browning, we need to look at depth. Obviously, we know Nick Benito is there, but is he going to turn that corner? We can't bet on that. So definitely edge would be a concern. And then I'm still on the train of a dynamic inside linebacker. Now, I've been more. I'm a big fan of inside linebackers, and I feel as though they've not been given their credit uh, as they should be. And I know we signed Alex Singleton, re-signed him again, and this is great. He did well with the team last year. Josie Jewell, we know what he can bring as well, but we need a good dynamic coverage inside linebacker. So that might be one of the positions they maybe look in the draft to address. But I would say at the forefront, the biggest three needs for me: center, edge, inside linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you and I are agreeing on center. Although I feel like Sean Payton may like what Cushenberry had to offer coming out of college. So he thinks, sometimes coaches think they can, do a reclamation project, so to speak, and he'll fit. So we'll see what they do. They're going to have to draft a center either way because Cushenberry's unrestricted free agent after this season. So Michael Ronquillo coming in already. Thank you with the Facebook stars. We really, really enjoy having you here, and the support that you give us is wonderful with those Facebook stars. So thank you so much, Michael. He says, good evening, Thomas Hall and Ron White on the orange and blue view. Go Broncos and buck 'em. So thank you for that, Michael. Appreciate you being here. And we got Lawrence coming in with Facebook stars as well. Man, we appreciate the support. Thank you. And Lawrence says, what up, guys? How's everyone? I'm glad we got our fullback. Yeah, you're a big fullback guy. So am I. I love fullbacks. Ron, how do you, before we get into these grades, let's just talk about the fullback for a second. Are you surprised? Are you happy? Or do you not really care about fullbacks as much as myself and Lawrence?
I'm not surprised. I'm actually thrilled. I think the fullback. I have a soft space in my heart for the fullback position. It's kind of been one of those dying positions, if you will. I know, Kyle Shanahan and some other folks use the fullback with the use check, but this offense, it can definitely help. And I'm glad we got, Mike Burton off the Chiefs. I think it'll definitely help with this team. So I'm right there with you, Lawrence, right? Having a fullback, and I think it's been a while since the Broncos have had one. I forgot the year. I know we had one a few years ago, but now that seeing that position now come back to Denver, it's good. It's exciting. So I'm right there with you. Yep.
Yeah, I love the signing not only because I love fullbacks and I know that Sean Payton uses fullbacks, but the also thing is he's coming from a championship team. I mean, that's a nice little addition, a little bit of championship mentality coming in. So I love that they've got a fullback. I think they're going to use him, not extensively because fullback is a bit of a dying breed, so to speak, but he's going to get his opportunities to block and to get a few receptions a little, out of the backfield. So I think it's a great signing. So I appreciate it, Lawrence. And Gina's coming in. Gina Cooper coming with Facebook stars again. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like the show, do all that, support us. We really appreciate it. We love doing the show, and we're just going to keep it rolling here. But Gina says, I have to say overall, we've been making waves with free agency, but more work lies ahead. Broncos country, we got this. And yeah, I agree. There's still some work left to do, but you can't be upset with what they've done so far. The Broncos have gone out, they've spent the money, and I've always said you don't win the Super Bowl in March and you don't win the Super Bowl in April, but they have went out and were aggressive to fill the holes on this roster and do the best they can with some of the top talent that was out there. And so you can't be upset that they went out and spent the money. I mean, you can argue that maybe they overpaid a little bit, but that doesn't matter. They went out and addressed the needs. So, and for my money, my number one free agent signing this offseason has been Ben Powers. I love that signing. I was hoping that they would get him from the get-go, but I didn't know if they could spend the money on a big name right tackle, which I think was the bigger need, and still get Ben Powers, but they went and did it. So to me, I think that's an A for Ben Powers. That's an A for me. I loved it. What about you, Ron?
Yeah, I agree. So I would say, as far as the grade for Ben Powers, I agree. Definitely an A. I think you and I's ones and twos mates differ a bit, but my top ranked Mike McGlinchey. It's been a big need for a long time. And the fact that we now have stability at right tackle, and I'm trying to pull up the numbers here. I believe it was 4 years, 87.5 million, with 50 million guaranteed for Mike McGlinchey. I give that a solid A. I think that was one of the biggest moves for the Broncos and one of the moves that they needed to do the most. And he can come in, he's still 28 years old, can come in one of the top tier offensive tackles in the league, coming in. And I believe I have some other records of 6 sacks allowed. I think that was tied for 8, and then 10 penalties committed. So we can definitely use his services. And I'm right there with you on Ben Powers as well. My number 2, solid A, 26 years old, hitting his prime, 0 sacks allowed, Thomas. 0.
Yeah.
So Coming in with those stats already with Sean Payton, with this scheme, can definitely pay big dividends for this offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was glad they got McGlinchey. I preferred Jawan Taylor just because of youth and there's a few issues that coming in. I still think McGlinchey. I think the right tackle had to be addressed, and they went and got who they thought was the best. And that I can't knock him for that. But I would. I think he's a B plus in my mind. But I still, they needed to do this. Like I said, I've been saying that they haven't had a solid right tackle since they moved Orlando Franklin to guard way back in the day. So they've been searching around for a long time to get it. So I'm glad they did. And Phil McLaughlin, thank you for coming in here
Thank you,
tonight.
Phil.
Thanks for being here with the Facebook Stars. Again, we love the support. We appreciate it. And we love seeing you here because you always have great comments. And his comment today is, evening, Thomas, Ron, and Deacon Scott. I'm glad to see we signed PJ. And I'm assuming that's PJ Locke. I really think it helps our safety depth. Go Broncos and Buckham. What do you think of the signing with PJ Locke, and what do you think that means going forward for any other safety options out there?
Yeah, again, thank you, Phil. We appreciate your generosity as always. So as far as PJ Locke, I thought it was great. To Phil's point, it definitely does help with the depth. He can come in and help out on certain snaps, certain scenarios, maybe with some special team help as well. So we can definitely use the depth at the safety position. Um, we know Caden Stearns. We'll see what happens. I know he's going to be coming back from injury. Kareem Jackson, I don't see him with this team after this week, but we don't know. So I can definitely see why they re-signed him. Now, what it means for signing someone else, I still don't think that's off the table. I know there are rumors out there about CJ Gardner Johnson, being tied to the Broncos. And I know obviously there's some familiarity with Sean Payton back in New Orleans before he got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. So we can definitely see that signing come, if the sides do agree, if there's mutual interest. But great that they re-signed PJ Locke. I've always been a PJ Locke fan, but it does not preclude the Broncos from signing CJ Gardner Johnson or even addressing that in the draft as well.
Yeah, my feelings on his great depth signing. I liked PJ. He was opportunistic a few times. He plays well in special teams. The thing about it to me is you've got to let your young guys develop,
Mhm.
right? So for me, I don't know it necessarily keeps them from signing a big name safety, but I think Caden Stearns' development does. You've got to let your young guys develop. When I looked back at for the show on Friday morning, I looked back at the 1994, 95, 96 Broncos and how they developed like Tom Nalen and Alan Aldrich, along with getting these big name free agents to come in and help solidify that team. And they have a bunch of them that they need to do that with. They got to have faith in Caden Stearns.
Mhm.
And if you go out and you get a big name safety, you're basically saying we don't have any faith in you, Caden Stearns, to develop. And he was a great rookie. He did a great job. He had some injuries last year, but let him develop. Let some of these young guys like Dulcich and Mathis and Stearns kind of step up and become the players that they should become without, because you can't just go spend money everywhere and fix every hole. So that's my thoughts on PJ Locke. Great depth signing, and I think he's going to be a fun guy to watch this year. So
I agree. And we have Gary Palmer coming in here. Thank you, Gary, with the $10 super chat. He says, "Hey, Orange and Blue View in Broncos country. I am holding off on the optimism, but it's getting hard with all these cool picks. Go Broncos, MHH for life." Yes, Gary. That's kind of been, how can I put this? I know me personally, I've always been optimistic after these free agent signings that the Broncos are going to do better. We're going to have a winning record, right? And we've always been proved wrong late on in the year as the season starts. But I do think, Gary, you're right. It is difficult to a degree just because I think this time we can say our optimism is valid. It is warranted just because we have the coaching in place.
yeah,
And I think with that goes far enough, right? I think once you get the coaching in place, we have players with great stats across the board, right, based on their career. With all that in place, how can you not be optimistic? So I'm right there with you. I think we can all go into this season encouraged that the Broncos should do well. They should be able to go toe to toe with any team in the league based on the coaching and then the free agent signings, and then we'll see what happens in the draft as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gary. Man, you're the man. Thank you for the support. We always appreciate you. Always see you here. It's wonderful. I'll say the same thing. I'm like one of the most optimistic Broncos fans out there, probably, and I let that kind of get me hyped up for the season each year. And the last few have been very disappointing. But I'll tell you, it's hard not to be. You're right. I am going to hold off my optimism, but you cannot, like I said earlier, you cannot argue with the fact that they went out and addressed some glaring needs on this team. Now, all they need is health to really, for the season to have all that come to fruition. Have good health. I think Russell Wilson's going to come back to play as well as he was in the past. So I think you're going to have a solid team. They just got a couple things to fix. So Gage coming in. All right, Gage Madrid, thank you for coming in and with this comment. Appreciate it, Gage. Appreciate you being here. It says, good evening, Thomas and Ron. Given the current financial situation, what are the odds of landing C.J. Gardner-Johnson? Stern's hip injury gives me cause for concern at safety. Now, we were just talking about this a little bit, so thank you, Gage, for kind of bringing this back around. There has been a ton of talk. C.J. Gardner-Johnson followed a bunch of people on Instagram, I guess, and then, hoping to get a signing. Maybe that he just wanted more than the Broncos were willing to pay. I don't know what happened, and then he unfollowed all the social media that he followed before, the Broncos players and such. So, I don't know exactly. I thought the cap was around $7 million after they brought all these signing ins. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. It all depends on what C.J. Gardner-Johnson wants in return. I mean, he's a big name signing. He may have priced himself above the market, and that's why he's not signed yet. And that's that might be why the Broncos didn't jump in there. I think he's a great safety, but again, you're right. Caden Stearns had an injury. Hopefully he's healed from that. It wasn't as devastating injury as some of hip injuries in the past, like we saw with Bo Jackson and those stars that have hip injuries. But like I said, I want the Broncos to trust in the development of their young players. So that's my thoughts on it. Gardner-Johnson may have just priced himself out too high. That might be the problem.
Yeah, and I agree to an extent there, Thomas, of, based on Gardner-Johnson's play last year, I think he did price himself out. And I know there's familiarity with him and Peyton, and he's probably going to command top dollar at that position. But in my mind, don't get me wrong, I would love Gardner-Johnson as a player for the Broncos. But for me, it's more of a luxury signing just because we have Justin Simmons. And you're right, the injury to Stearns is a bit alarming, but it doesn't cause too much concern for me, given what I've seen from Caden Stearns. What we saw, before the injury and even his rookie year was very promising. And I think once he comes back to full strength, you'll start to see more of that on the opposite side of Justin Simmons. So, again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that Gardner-Johnson would be great for this team because he can definitely come in, do some great things. But I think it's more a wish list type luxury signing, at least for me. Yeah. And again, to your point, Thomas, let the players develop. You drafted Caden Stearns. Let Caden Stearns continue to develop. I mean, we saw flashes there. And I think more time he's on the field, he'll even be better. So.
Yeah, and we got Big Earn coming in. Facebook saying "Go Broncos, country only," yeah. And that's right. None of these second favorite teams for me. It's Broncos or nothing. It's I love the Broncos and I don't like 31 other teams. So you're right. Thank you for that coming in. Appreciate it.
Aaron.
We got Daniel Yost coming in from YouTube saying, "Good evening, Broncos country. Would you guys agree that the Broncos are the winners this offseason so far in free agency frenzy so far?" My personal opinion, I do. Need some more O-line and D-line. Well, yeah, like I said, Daniel, Ron, I'll just give you a second here to think about this, and I'll just say I hate proclaiming a winner in March, right? I really do. But when you look at the needs that they had and how they addressed them, they went out and were aggressive and got the first two names on the list, Powers and McGlinchey, were some of the top, most sought after players, and they went out and got them. And they filled huge needs on that offensive line, remade the offensive line, and remade the attitude of the offensive line with those two signings, in my opinion. So when you look at it as whether they were the winners against other teams, I can't say. I know that some of the other teams are really good, but for what the Broncos needed, they went out and they did it. Now, there's a couple things that they still need to address. They went out and got a running back in Perrine, but they still need another running back because they're short there. So there's a few things that they have to do. They never addressed center. Still a few names out there, but for overall, when you look across the board, they did what they needed to do, and that's what I'm impressed with. They didn't care about being cheap. They went out, spent the money, and they got what they needed.
Yes. And again, thank you, Daniel, for your question. Much appreciated. And I would say we are the biggest winners because we have the richest owner in the NFL. So we have the most cash up front, whereas though we can guarantee a lot of these contracts, and we targeted who we thought would help. And granted, these are top tier players that we desperately needed. Again, McGlinchey, Powers, Zach Allen. Stidham's more of a backup option, as we know, but even re-signing Alex Singleton. So addressing the offensive line, addressing the D line with Zach Allen, and then bringing in the running back with Samaje Perine. I mean, these are glaring needs that needed to be addressed. So I would say, looking at it holistically, we were the biggest winners of free agency thus far. Now, we do still have some work to do. There's still some holes to fill, and there could be one or two out there in free agency that they'll target. Of course, we have the draft, but I am very impressed with what the Broncos have done so far. But I will say a close second. I know we're not, talking about other teams too much, but I would say the Chicago Bears also did a great job in free agency as well, surrounding Justin Fields with good talent. I would probably say they're a close second or third, but yeah, definitely the Broncos hands down.
Broncos country only.
Yeah.
You heard Big Aaron. Broncos country only. No
Broncos.
talking about Bears. You got Phil coming back in with Facebook stars again. Man, thank you for the support. It's great. And a very good question here because people have been talking about it, right? And we see needs in the running back position, but Phil McLaughlin's asking, what do you guys think about getting Austin Eckler in case Williams cannot play? Now, that's a good question. Ron, what do you think? Not only do you like Austin Eckler, or do you think that the Broncos have interest?
Yeah, I like Austin Eckler. I think the interest is there. Are the Chargers willing to trade in the division, right? Because I think right now would be via a trade, if I'm not mistaken. So would they be willing to trade within the division? I think that'll be kind of my question, my concern. Also, what Austin Eckler does bring is very dynamic. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Sean Payton will find a way to use him. I just don't, again, I can't see it right now, given what Sean Payton kind of wants to do. Now, I know Austin Eckler can run hard, can catch it out of the backfield, but we've already brought in Samaje Perine for that. And, Samaje Perine's a bruiser. He can catch it out of the backfield. He can block well. So you already signed a running back that can do all the things that you want to do. And the draft is still here, right? It's still pending for you to actually look at some running back options. As good as he is, and he would be a nice to have in this offense, I just don't see Eckler being in play for the Broncos.
Yeah, and not only that, the Broncos don't have a lot of draft capital to send. So it'd have to be, I don't think the Chargers want to get rid of him for, peanuts. So I don't know. I think he'd be a great fit. I think Sean Payton would use him extraordinarily well. But let's face it, there is a need there. I know that they went out and got Perrine, but Javonte Williams' knee injury was pretty devastating. And it would be a miracle really, for Williams to be back on the field from
Mhm.
day one. And it will be almost that to have him play and play well anytime during this season. When you have multiple ligament knee injuries, I read a study, 17% of football players get back to their production before the knee injury.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping, I love Javonte Williams. I'm hoping that he returns and as good as he was or better. But the Broncos have to do more stuff. And I think they're going to have to address it in the draft.
Yeah.
They're going to have to do something. They don't have the draft capital to go trade for Austin Eckler. They're going to have to bring somebody else in, and it could be Latavius Murray or something like that.
Yeah.
But Austin Eckler, I think, is, like you said, it's a trade within the division, and they don't have a lot of capital to throw out there. So I don't know if it's a realistic, thing to happen this offseason.
Yep. Agree. And coming in here, Gary Palmer. Thanks, Gary, again.
Thank
Much
you very much.
appreciated as always. He asks, am I seeing it right by saying we are looking for depth except center now? I would say mostly yes, Gary. I would say we're looking more at depth, maybe picking up another free agent signing or two for depth, but definitely in the draft. I would say most of, again, outside of center, edge, again, for me, inside linebacker and corner, I would say we're looking mostly on looking at addressing that depth for now. And I can see them, again, looking at options whenever we pick in the draft to address that. But I definitely agree there, Gary, for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of center, as we've talked, I think people might have to start to come to terms with the fact that Lloyd Cushenberry may very well be the starting center
Yeah.
entering the season.
Yeah.
Because if they wanted to go get a center to replace him, they would have been aggressive with that because they still had some money, but they went and they filled some other spots in, right?
Mhm.
So you can draft a center, but as we saw with Cushenberry getting thrown in as a center, you don't always get a great, the rookie doesn't always perform well. I mean, there's still some options out there. They could get Rodney Hudson. He's an experienced older vet. Ben Jones, same thing. They're about the same age. They're kind of winding down their careers. They may be willing to take, a smaller contract to come in for a year, something of that nature. They're definitely going to draft a center. But like I said, we have to come to terms with it. They may be starting Lloyd Cushenberry when we enter the season, and hopefully he can make that leap from the poor play that we've seen into at least a middle of the road center would be great. That would be wonderful. But I don't know. It's interesting. But like a Hudson or somebody like that might come in later. But I think all the big name kind of centers that you saw out there that were available have all been signed somewhere already. So the young kind of big ticket free agent centers, they're all kind of gone.
Yeah.
So it's an old guy or an inexperienced guy or a draft, or it's Cushenberry. I mean, that's where we're looking. But yeah, I think you're right. The one question that I have, I mean, I love the Zach Allen signing too. I was disappointed that Draymond Jones went somewhere else. He was my first target, but I like Zach Allen. But we also saw Deshaun Williams get signed elsewhere, unrestricted free agent, other starters. So the Broncos I think they are hoping that their two rookies that played pretty well for rookies last year. Henningsen played quite a bit, and I think I think they're hoping one of those guys steps up and can play opposite of Zach Allen with DJ Jones in the middle. And like I said earlier, you have to trust your draft, right? You have to trust that you got these players, you're developing them, and that they're going to start to pay dividends as good depth or starters on that defensive line rotation. And I think they have two of them that they really like, and I think that they may not bring in any more depth on the defensive line, even though it's a question mark. They really should.
Yeah, and going back to your comment on center, we don't know what Sean Payton and the offensive line coach thinks about Cushenberry, right? They can be higher on Cushenberry than we are, right? Again, this is a different scheme coming in too, right? So with this scheme, right, they could definitely be more optimistic about Cushenberry. And to your point, Thomas, yeah, don't be surprised to see Cushenberry be your starting center. It might be that could definitely happen.
Yep.
And on the defensive line, again, that's where again, I don't see any. I just don't see any other ticket names out there in free agency. But I expect to see that be addressed in the draft. And you're right, Henningsen and Aruzarike, they showed flashes last year on the defensive line, and I think with the better coaching coming in with Vance Joseph, I think they can definitely continue that growth. But I can definitely see defensive line being addressed with a pick or two within the draft for sure.
Yeah. And we got a good question here from Sparky coming in from YouTube. So thank you, Sparky, for being here tonight. Thank you for this comment. He says, why is no one mentioning the Bolles injury? And that's a good question. I mean, but I think the Bolles injury wasn't as bad as it was. It was a fracture, I believe. It did put him on injured reserve, and he wasn't able to return because it took a while to heal. But I don't think typically a fracture like he had is one that you can't overcome and come back and still play well. It's not as bad as some major ligament damage, because I don't think, if I remember correctly, I don't think he suffered any sort of tendon or ligament damage. It was just a break, and those usually heal up quite well. And hopefully he comes back and plays not like he was playing last year, but the year before. I hope that he rekindles some of that good play that he had. But everybody's banking on that is healed, and he's coming back as the starting left tackle. Now, if he doesn't, then that's a major issue. I mean, who do they have to kind of backfill that? There really isn't anybody at this point. So I think they're very confident that he comes back and is playing at a high level as he's capable of. We'll see how he plays, but with Ben Powers next to him, I think he's going to play better.
Exactly. You actually hit the nail right on the head. I think with Ben Powers, and again, thank you, Sparky, for your question. With Ben Powers next to him, I think Bolles will definitely play better, and we'll start to see the Bolles the year before last. And the injury it's not as concerning, to your point, as like the Javonte injury. It's something that the Broncos should still consider, right, as they go into the draft. Look at depth behind Bolles, right, at the tackle position. But for me, that's just not something that we should be too worried about. I do believe Bolles should be ready and be okay to at least start the season and move forward.
Yeah. So we've been kind of talking about the big name free agent. We liked. We don't think we gave a grade for Zach Allen. I give that grade an A- because they filled in a need with somebody who's coming into their prime, just like Draymond Jones was. I kind of like the signing, not as much as I would have liked to see Draymond Jones back, because I think he offers a little bit more in the pass rush area. But I mean, Zach Allen wants to be here. I really liked it. But there's all these secondary signings too. We've got Tremon Smith, cornerback, kick returner. We got fullback Burton. He's there. We've got Singleton. Singleton came back, and that I have a lot of thoughts on Singleton. We got Manhurts. What a name, right? Manhurts, the tight end, and then Stidham as the backup quarterback. So of those names, Ron, who's your who do you like the best out of the after the big three, the big stars, right? Who's the next on your list that you like?
I would say bringing back Alex Singleton was good, right? I what he was able to do last year, lead the team in tackles, and then the deal he got, I think it was 3 years, 18 million, 9 million guaranteed. Coming there being right alongside Josie Jewell, I think that's good. And then the corner from the Texans, I think, is good as well. So those are kind of my two dark horse signings after the big names, just because of the versatility of this corner coming in, right? He can be corner depth, obviously, but as the kick returner, coming in and helping out on special teams would be good. But I would say those are definitely my two, as far as the ones I like. As far as the grade, I give Alex Singleton coming back A-, just because obviously what he did last season, kind of holding down that middle with the tackles. And then the corner, I did give the grade of a B+. Again, just because of the versatility, and we needed that depth at the corner, and coming in and being a contributor on special teams, depending on Sean Payton, how the special team coach sees the team, can definitely be good for the Broncos as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they rewarded Singleton because of his play last year. As far as he was a tackling machine. Don't get me wrong. I love inside linebackers that tackle, and his stops were solid. His solo stops were for about 3.5 yards,
Hmm.
and that was right along the tops of the league. So
Hmm.
he's a good player. My only problem with Singleton is there's just not enough impact plays for me. They didn't give him big money though, so that's not huge money. I mean, that's not Roquan Smith money, but I want to see him have more tackles for a loss this year coming up. I want to see an interception. I want to see some forced fumbles, that type of stuff. If you're gonna because I keep going back to, like, I remember watching Michael Brooks back in the day, tackling machine, but there wasn't a lot of impact plays, and so they let him walk in free agency back in the day. And some of these other, like Jesse Tuggle, I think about him, man, tackle, tackle, tackle. But some of those seasons that he was a leading tackler, he didn't have a lot of those impact plays. So, you got to have those impact plays as an inside linebacker nowadays. So I'm not as high on Alex Singleton as everybody else. I love the tackling that he does. Great. It's not 7 yards down the field, as some people would say. He was in there, but a little bit more impact plays, and maybe working with this team a little bit longer, getting used. He came in, kind of got thrown in after it was supposed to be Griffith and Jewell, and Griffith got hurt, so he kind of came in late and started starting. So, you may see that better reaction in some of those instances where he takes a little bit more risks to cause some turnovers and things like that. So, yeah, it's an okay signing for me. We got Lawrence coming in. Lawrence coming back in saying, "My son and I will be watching tape on the new running back tonight. He just loves watching it, and it gives me time to hit tape. I've been seeing stat padding a lot, where teams give the ball to a person in garbage time just to be able to ship him out. Sometimes GM's really got to watch out now." Yeah, absolutely. It's good that you jump in there. I like Pirine, but he's just one of those signings that it's not a wow signing. It's not like he's not on the Josh Jacobs level or Saquon Barkley or anything, but I think he's going to be a solid player, and he fits the attitude that it looks like the Broncos want to have. They want to be, kind of those maulers. They want to be able to run the football down your throat when they choose to. And so far, that's what I've seen. And that, he's one of those guys, but he's not, he's not, I would say, so dynamic that he's going to change the game, but he's going to be solid. And we appreciate the support. Thank you, Lawrence, for coming back in. What do you think about Perrine there, Ron?
Thank you, Lawrence, for much appreciated. I think that's where you and I disagree a bit because Samaje Perine has been a mauler. I've been watching some tape, and I think people call him the Chiefs killer, right? In all the games that they played against the Chiefs, and I kind of view him more as, obviously he's not Marshawn Lynch, but more of one of those just bruisers that can come in and just maul guys, like just power running game. And not only the running style, Thomas, of what makes him so special, it's his ability to catch passes out of the backfield.
Yeah.
And also to block.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
need to.
Great third down. Yeah. Picking up the blitz for
Pick
sure.
up the blitz for sure. And Sean Payton's offense, we saw what I think the comparable player in the New Orleans offenses for Samaje would be a Mark Ingram, right? Being able to just power run, block when needed, catch it out of the backfield. And he can come in and do that because we're starting to see, as we sign these free agents, how this offense is going to take shape. And do not be surprised. It's going to be a running style, emphasis on running based offense. And that's why you brought in players like Samaje P. Ryan. So I think I give it an eight. I give that an eight just because of, again, we don't know what Javonte Williams coming. We don't know. We don't know what they're going to do with Latavius Murray. I would love to see Murray come back on a 1 or 2 year deal, right? But we don't know what the Broncos are thinking. So having him come in to bring some sort of stability in to this running back room, I think is great.
Yeah. No, I think it was a good signing. I just don't feel like he's super dynamic and exciting type of player like some of these other big names out there. But yeah, solid. He's an all-around back. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, he can catch, he can block, he can pick up the blitz. He's got the attitude that they obviously want. So yeah, I mean, and who knows, maybe this is his catalyst to like kind of step into that lead back role and really, really come on this season. We'll see, obviously, when it comes out. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't down on the signing. I think it was a good one. I want to see them pick somebody in the draft that might end up being a little bit more dynamic than he is. So Jetty Splash is coming in. Thank you for this comment. We really appreciate this comment. It says, if it wasn't for Mile High Huddle, I would not know if this week was good or bad. Well, thank you for watching all of the shows. I mean, we've been hitting this free agency period all week because it started on Monday, and it's been the talk of the town, obviously. And yeah, thank you for that shout out. I mean, we've got plenty of shows on Mile High Huddle, so and a lot of different expertise and perspectives, and that's what I like about all these shows is everybody brings a little bit different perspective. So my opinion is different than Ron's, and somebody else's, Chad or Zach or whoever or Luke, they're going to have a different opinion as well. So thank you for that. And we got Lorenzo de Pepe. I think I pronounced that right. Maybe I didn't, but I'm sorry if I butchered it. But Lorenzo, thank you for coming in. And he has a comment, coming from Facebook saying, love our O-line, but still do not have the secondary to stop KC. Yeah, Ron, what's your take on the secondary as is? I mean, we've got some good players. There's definitely some great players in that secondary, but what is your take? Do you think they need to add something else, like he says, to stop Kansas City? Because that's the top dog. You got to take them down.
I agree. And again, thank you, Lorenzo. Much appreciated. I would say, so the secondary, it is solid, as we know. I think one piece that can help stop KC is adding another corner. Obviously, we know what PS2 is about, what he can do. Justin Simmons, we already know. Depending on what they do with that other safety spot, if Caden Stearns comes in. But Damari Mathis was great. What we saw last season was very promising and encouraging, but we still don't know, and he's still kind of in that, I guess, growth period, if you will. So adding more experience, more veteran leadership at corner would definitely be a good start. I would say I was one of the biggest proponents of getting Darius Slay. I was like, can the Broncos make this work somehow with getting Darius Slay to be alongside Patrick Surtain? But adding that other corner would definitely be good, Lorenzo. But I do see, maybe one of those lower tier corners that with Vance Joseph at the helm, maybe can make some hay. But I do see maybe them looking at that in the draft. But I would say corner would definitely be, or bolstering the corner position. Yeah. Would definitely be a good way to help stop Kansas City, because we know that's the big one we got to stop. We got to get over this losing streak of Kansas City, and I think we will this year, but we definitely have to get that addressed.
So here's my take on the secondary. I think it's a solid secondary. I mean, Simmons is one of the best safeties in the league. I think Surtain's the best cornerback in the league. So you've got those are two positions that you don't have to worry about.
Yep.
Kwan Williams, a great corner. I think it was a great pickup. I think he is, if he can stay healthy, and he played injured. He had a cast on his hand for some of the season. So he, that's another one. The big question mark for me is, can Mathis continue his trajectory from where he was at the end of the season? Because he kind of, had a rough start, but he played really well as a rookie, thrown into the fire, and he held his own. If his trajectory is still continuing upward instead of, leveling out or dropping down, he's going to be a very solid cornerback in this league. So I think that they have the secondary. The growth in the secondary is where I'm the most worried, with Mathis, the young guys, and Caden Stearns. Can they step up their game to the next level? If they can, I think the secondary is going to be one of the better secondaries in the NFL if that growth happens. And then there was a guy I liked, De'Aaron Turner-Yell. He was a rookie last year, didn't get much playing time. He's a safety. He's going to provide depth, but, they liked him coming out of the draft. I actually liked him coming out of the draft. If he can make some progress as well, you're going to see, that depth kind of fill in. And I think that's what the Broncos brought in. Didn't go out and get a big time cornerback. They brought in Tremon Smith to add that depth in the secondary. and be a kickoff returner if Montreal Washington, fails to improve and kind of sees that role. So I don't think they need it. I think they're confident in their young guys taking that next step. And I think they will. I loved what Mathis did. I think that he surprised me at how good he was coming in and playing as a rookie. So yeah, I think they've got a secondary. I don't think they need to really go out and get anything else other than, like you said, draft some players who they can develop into stars. Because at some point you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with Justin Simmons down the road. Like he got, a couple more years, they're going to have to make a decision with him. So, grab another safety in the draft to develop. So that's my take on it.
And we know what always helps out a good secondary, right? The presence up front, right? And we know Randy Gregory. We know what he can bring. It's just a matter of can he stay on the field. Baron Browning, right? So that pressure, that edge pressure up front, the D line getting pressure inside, that can definitely help out the secondary. So also bolstering those positions can make the secondary even more formidable. And you're right, Thomas. The secondary is solid, right? I mean, I think we finished, passing, right, top. That's kind of been near the top of the league, right, the past few seasons. So the secondary is known to do great. It's just a matter of, I guess my concern is more on the depth side, right? Once one of these players do go down, bringing in someone that can, God forbid PS2 go down, right?
Right.
Bringing in someone with that experience to kind of steer the ship. But yeah, definitely if we could get that up front pressure taken care of, the secondary would be that much better.
Yeah, and the only knock that I have on them is they didn't create enough turnovers. They didn't get enough interceptions. They need more takeaways. But other than that, if they can get more takeaways this year, I think they're going to be just fine. And sorry, Todd, I know you've been waiting here. Todd came in with this comment. And he says, I'm hoping part of what makes our returners better this year is having a more competent coach. And yeah, we hit on that. That's why they brought Tremont Smith in to hopefully take over the kickoff return duties, unless Washington, improves enough to hold on to that. I liked Washington. I knew it was a reach, but I think he's got the skill, and hopefully he can put those rookie woes behind him and become a better returner. But yeah, I'm excited for the first time about their special teams. They've got some good, really good coaches in here to make that special teams better. I think the returners are going to be better, but the kickoff coverage, I think that, the coverage has been really kind of poor. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a big step. And some of these signings are for that, right? Like you're going to see Manhertz probably in special teams. You're going to see, Burton on special teams. You're going to see Smith on special teams. So some of that was to address those special teams woes in not just depth. So I think there's some great signings.
Yep, I agree there. You did the nail on the head, Thomas, of a lot of these players, more so as we saw near the end of when the Broncos started to sign, were to help the special teams, because it's the coverage that has been plaguing the Broncos for years. So coaching coming in to help address that with the new players would definitely at least help and get the special teams unit back to where it was. And I agree, like the whole thing on Montreal Washington, like I like Montreal Washington. I don't think he was used properly. I think with the coaching with Dwayne Stoops, really, it didn't really go well. And now with Sean Payton, new special teams coaching, and also look out for Sean Payton to use Montreal Washington in more than one way, right? He can maybe still be there with special teams and as that returner, but also lining up as a receiver for gadget plays, right? So using him to his potential is, I think, why Sean Payton would definitely help bring out the best in him. So definitely.
Yeah, we got Lorenzo coming back in with a name that Broncos country should be familiar with, because he played for the Kansas City Chiefs for a few years and then went to the Rams and then ended up in Baltimore, and that's Marcus Peters. So Lorenzo's asking, how about Marcus Peters? Now, yeah, I have my thoughts on Marcus Peters. Ron, I'm going to let you jump in on this first. See, what do you think about them bringing in a Marcus Peters?
Thank you, Lorenzo, again. Much appreciated as always. Yeah, I'm not really the biggest fan of Marcus Peters. I think, you're right with the Chiefs and even with Rams and the Raiders, he he does show flashes sometimes, but I feel as though sometimes with he does guess when it comes to playing the ball. At least that's kind of what I've noticed. So, I think the Broncos would be better off finding someone else in the draft. And also you have to take on his contract too, right? And I already think with you having Jamon Smith with PS2 and Damari Mathis, we talked about making sure we can have him develop. So I feel as though coming in would, take away snaps from Damari Mathis. And so I would want to pass on Marcus Peters, just because I want to see that development more from Damari Mathis. And you're right, Thomas. I think you brought up the point earlier of what Damari Mathis did last year was great. Like you said, just being thrown in, holding his own. And I think him continuing that with the right coaching would help. And I feel as though that would be best for the Broncos. So for me,
Yeah.
it's a pass on Marcus Peters.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking about creating turnovers and takeaways, and Marcus Peters is very good at that. I mean, he's a 4-time All-Pro.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
I don't want to knock the guy, but the thing that kind of I they're trying to change the locker room, right?
Yeah, that
They
too.
want a different attitude in that locker room, and what happened last year was bad. I don't know if he's going to be a good locker. I don't know that much about his locker room presence, but from what I've seen, some of the stuff that he said in the past, I don't know if I'd want to bring that on right now. If you had if you had a serious team for the last couple of years that had leaders across the board that could, that had the locker room set and solid, I could see bringing someone in then. But I just think for what from my perspective, if you want to change that locker room, you want to change the attitude. I don't know if Marcus Peters throwing him in there is a great idea. So, but he's a talented cornerback, no doubt. Like he takes the ball away, and I've just been talking about you need to do that. So, I don't know if they want to throw that mix in there, right now. So, no, it's a no for me. But Daniel Yost coming back in says, what would you guys grade this year's free agent class overall and the Broncos' new look team so far overall? And that's a good question. That's why we're here. Ron, I'm going to let you give a crack. I know we've graded individual players, but let's give the overall class a grade, and then we'll start to wrap up the show.
Yes. And thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated for your question. So, free agent class grade overall, I'm going to give it an A minus. Again, I like why I gave it an A minus is because they addressed the most pressing need, which was on the offensive line. And to get two of the top players at tackle, at guard for that position, you couldn't have done any better than that. So filling in and addressing those immediate needs was great. I love the Zach Allen signing. Again, I gave the Zach Allen signing, I believe it was an A minus. Um, I was bummed out by the fact that we couldn't get Draymond Jones back, but Zach Allen has been great with the Cardinals, and of course, there's familiarity there with Vance Joseph. And then some of the other signings, Jared Stidham was a solid backup. Bringing back Alex Singleton was great as well, with the corner, and then PJ Locke. So I would say overall, A minus would be my grade. And then the new look team so far overall, I would say again, center would be the thing we should target next, or the Broncos should target next. And then looking to address the depth with some of these positions. Again, you'll see that maybe some lower tier players in free agency that are remaining, and then in the draft, you'll see the depth start being addressed. But yeah, great question.
Yeah, and mine's a B plus, right, for the free agency period. And the reason why I love that they went out and were aggressive and got the guys that they wanted. Ben Powers was a perfect fit for me. I
Yep.
wanted him from the get go.
Yep.
McGlinchey was kind of someone who had a little question marks on, right?
Mhm.
There might have been somebody out there that you could have got better, for the money. So that's the only thing. Not that I like McGlinchey. I think he's going to be, I hope he's going to be a stud. There were some question marks. So that's kind of where I'm at with the B plus. They went out and addressed the offensive line, but they didn't address center, which I thought they should have.
Mhm.
So that's the only thing that bothers me a little bit. And they still haven't addressed the emptiness of the running back room, right? They've got a running back, but they still need to do that. So for my money, I guess if it were my money, there's a couple questions that I had. Overall, I love it. I love that they went out and spent the money and got the guys that they wanted. But still, for me, it's a B plus. I still think there's a downgrade from Draymond Jones to Zach Allen, and I know that there's not much of one, but that's another piece that kind of gives me a little bit of a pause. But they changed the physicality. Obviously, they changed the face of this offense with this one off season. Really, I think so. That to me is great. Overall outlook on the team. I don't want to be too overly optimistic, right? I just don't, because last year I was really optimistic. Russell Wilson coming in. But I think that what they've done has made the team much better. And I think that Russell Wilson, because of it, will be much better. He will be the Russell Wilson that we thought we were getting when all the fans and analysts saw him traded, right? So my outlook on the team so far this offseason, I give it an A, because they've addressed what they needed to address, and they made the offense fit Russell Wilson better, and he's going to be a better player. Now, the defense might take a little bit of a step back, but overall, I think they're going to be able to compete in the AFC West, score points, and the defense is still going to be able to hold its own. So I give it a pretty good outlook. But again, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic because of last year, so. But anyway, yeah, so we've got Sparky coming in saying, great show, guys. My favorite show on Mile High Huddle. Well, thank you for that,
Thank
man.
you,
We really
Sparky.
appreciate that comment. So yeah, give us a like, give us a review, whatever you want. Give us some support, however you want to show that. But we really appreciate that comment, because we just started the show out. We're getting our feet under us, so we're going to continue to improve it and make it better for all you guys that come in here. So we really appreciate it. So, Ron, I'm going to say goodbye. You can give us some famous last words, whatever you want, and then we'll just kind of go off into the night, so to speak.
2 words, Broncos country: cautious optimism. This overhaul in free agency has been encouraging. It's been great to see what the Paytons have done to help make this team better. But I think we do have our best months, best seasons ahead of us with these moves. So we'll see what happens in the draft, and as we start, OTAs into the season. But definitely great, encouraging to see the moves happen. And let's go, Broncos.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, Broncos fans, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks, guys.